to some conflict and problems. We read in John 8, verse 31. So Jesus was saying to those Jews who had believed him, if you continue in my word, then you are truly disciples of mine, and you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free. So they answered him, we are Abraham's descendants and have never yet been enslaved to anyone. How is it that you say you will become free? Jesus answered them, truly, truly, I say to you, everyone who commits sin is a slave of sin. Jesus came to set the captive free. He did not come that he might set the political prisoner free of the Roman bondage which they had become enslaved with. The Jews, they were under the heel of the Roman government in Rome at the time. Jesus did not come to set them free of their political shackles, but he came to set the sinner free. And that applies to Jew and Gentile. It applies to men and women. It applies to people of whatever age. Jesus came to set the captive free. And each and every one of us, everyone who has drawn a breath, we have been sinners from our very birth. From the point of conception, there is sin that taints our spirit, and we are sinners. We are wearing the shackles of sin. Jesus came that we might know liberty, that we might know what it is to walk without those shackles that we have worn ever since the Garden of Eden. And so the Apostle Paul, he speaks very pointedly about this. It was for freedom that Christ set us free. Now we need to understand, what is it, this freedom that Paul speaks about? Is it that we can do whatever we want to do? Is it that we are unhindered in any way? Of course, it's a silly illustration that I bring now, but on a holiday, whether it be Remembrance Day or whether it be Christmas Day, it's a day when most people are setting aside their usual work routine, and it's, let's call it a free day, a holy day. But I am not at liberty to go out and murder someone. I am not at liberty to go and rob a store. I am not at liberty to do whatever I want. Some of the things that I usually do in the course of a day, yes, they are set aside. In that sense, it is a free day. But yet there are obligations that are laid upon each and every one of us, even on those days. And so it is in Christ. Christ came to set the prisoner free. And each and every one of us were confined in the in the prison house of sin. But Christ also came, and he asks us now to stand. It was for freedom that Christ set us free. Therefore, Paul says, keep standing firm. The perpetual price of freedom is constant vigilance against anyone or anything that would wish to take away that freedom. Most often by stealth, by small bites, by small degrees of change. And there were people who had come to these Galatians, and they brought a coarse change. They brought a slight deviation to the simple, straightforward gospel that Paul would speak to them. And Paul says to them, do you not know that a small amount of leaven leavens the whole lump of dough? Be ever so very careful. Some people do not know what it is and what they should do with freedom. Early in my ministry, I was well acquainted with a man who spent much of his life in prison. And sometimes I would visit him while he was incarcerated, and when he was at liberty, sometimes he would drop by my office and we would talk for a few moments. But very often, as he was set free from one sentence, he would be on the very steps of the police building, and he would become entangled in a fight, and he would be taken back into the building and once again charged. It was a very sad situation. He did not know what to do with freedom. He did not know how to handle liberty. The same is true of many people spiritually. They do not know how to handle it. They have come to Christ, but then they wander here and there, and they stray far and wide. Jesus came to set you at liberty. But friend, you are to stand firm and not to give way. Paul says in verse 4, you have been severed from Christ. You who are seeking to be justified by law, you have fallen from grace. These are severe words that Paul speaks to these people, to have fallen from grace. You who are seeking to be justified, you are seeking to move forward based upon the law. He is saying, Christ has come. He left heaven's glories that he might die upon a wooden cross for you and for me. He has given us so much freely. We need to continue to look to him and not be entangled in all of the things of this world that would want to consume us and would want to tie us down. Jesus calls us that we might stand in his presence. Jude, at the end of his little epistle, he writes that you might stand. Here Paul also speaks of that word stand. Christ, in all of his splendor, in all of his majesty, in all of his kindness to us, he speaks of us standing in his presence. And Paul also says that you might stand and that you might keep on standing. So many gods of this world, they would want us to cower in their presence. They would want us to fall down. But Christ calls us to stand. Oh friend, look to the cross today and stand in Christ, who loves you so very much.
Thank you for joining Pastor Barber today. Please watch for Faith to Live By again next Sunday at this same time on this same station. Until then, Faith to Live By prays that the peace of God will fill your heart and that the joy of the Lord will be your strength. Pastor Barber would love to hear from you. The mailing address is Faith to Live By, Box 426, Winnipeg, Manitoba, R3C 2H6.